welcome back on Sport Vitamins. I know I haven't released an episode in 3 weeks, but as we are approaching the playoffs, my schedule is really getting crazy. But I'm really happy to have Anthony Berry on the show today for episode 39. Anthony is the head athletic performance coach for the Motor City Cruise, the G League team of the Detroit Pistons. Anthony and I have been in contact for the past 2 years, and finally we got the chance to talk shop on my show. Some of the topics that we touched on are importance of having a background as an athlete, differences between private sector and team sector, and velocity-based training. So, without further ado, guys, here's the episode with Anthony Berry. Anthony, welcome on Sport Vitamins.
Hey, thank you, man. Glad to be part of the podcast, and I've heard good things about it. Of course, I've been following your work for a while, so happy to be here. Appreciate you.
Yeah, it's great to have you on today. And why don't we start with a little bit of a rundown on your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently I'm the head athletic performance coach for the Motor City Cruise, which is a G League affiliate of the Detroit Pistons. Originally from Boston, Massachusetts. But my love for strength conditioning originated at my alma mater, Merrimack College. There I was a member of the men's basketball team. I was fortunate enough to receive my bachelor's and master's in exercise sports science and human performance and wellness there. But during that time period, I was extremely fortunate to have interned for Mike Boyle because his facility was right down the street. And for those of you who don't know who Mike Boyle is, he's considered like the godfather of strength conditioning. He's with the Red Sox, the Bruins, of course, BU, and he has a certification that's world renowned that everybody gets just to learn his philosophy. So being there for about a year, it kind of turned me on to the idea of like training high school, college, professional athletes and the general population all under one roof, right? So after I finished up school, I moved into Boston and I just started working in the private sector. I formulated my own LLC, Berry Performance, and just try to get my hands on as many athletes as possible, so I was really passionate about it. And my most notable work was working with my now business partner, Pierre Sully, and the former strength coach for the Boston Celtics, Brian Dew, and we collaborated with Clutch Sports for their athlete, Darius Baisley. And we kind of did his gap year because he forewent college, took an internship with New Balance for a year, but he still needed to stay in shape and stuff to get ready for the combine and the draft. So, after that, everything kind of blew up in the private sector scene where agents and athletes from all over the country were coming to Boston to work with us. And, by the power of God and the social media and, networking, it kind of got my work on a good platform and was able to network and presented this opportunity. And here I am out in Detroit, all the way from Boston. So I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Guys, if you've never been to Michael Boyle's, you better go there. I really recommend it. It's definitely worth it. So, Anthony, you were an athlete yourself, right? So,
Yep.
Can you please tell us why is that important in your opinion to be an athlete? Like, for example, I'm an athlete myself. I used to play baseball. I stopped playing baseball two seasons ago. And even though I don't play basketball, I find a lot of value in being an athlete myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's extremely valuable. Granted, it's great to have played basketball, but I know there's a lot of strength coaches who may not have played basketball, but to have some sort of semblance of like what it is, like the daily grind, I think it's extremely important to kind of know, what it is that, the love for the game. Like, I think that's extremely important. Like, you need to first love the game because you're around these guys all the time. Oftentimes you're there with them more than you are with your own families or your significant others, right? So, and with the G League it's especially important because, obviously our job by title is to like administer programs to enhance performance, but there's so much more than that in the G League because, we're short staffed. So depending on your capabilities or your background, especially if you've played, you're kind of required to do a little bit more, whether it's get on the court and rebound or whether it's play, token defense, or be an extension of their staff on the bench, kind of be there the entire time. So I think it's extremely valuable. And also to be able to bridge the gap, like be able to talk in terms and language that they understand. Like, hey, listen, like you're kind of getting driven out of the baseline, like this is what we got to do as far as to increase your strength and how it correlates to the game. So I think it's extremely big aspect to have if have played the game before, for sure.
And why did you choose to pursue a career in strength and conditioning?
So my thing is, like, I always, as everybody when they started off, I wanted to be a professional athlete. That was my biggest, like, basketball has always been my first love, and has afforded me so many great opportunities, free education, to travel the country and to play at a high level. But I was never the most skilled by any means, and I was never the tallest and never the biggest. But my ability to just outwork the next person and to train my body mentally and physically is essentially what got me, like, I just love the process of it and being able to see what works and what doesn't work and stuff like that. So um, that was the biggest thing for me. It was just, I fell in love with the grind and seeing how that translated onto the court. And then, as I went through high school and finished it up and, like, looking at schools that I received scholarships from, is like, what can I major in that when the ball stops dribbling, I can at least stay around the game for as long as I can. And so, like, sports medicine and strength and conditioning was just like this nuance of, oh, this is like, there's so many opportunities from it that you can do: PT, athletic training, strength and conditioning. So I chose the route that would essentially keep me around the game for as long as I can. And thank God I did, because I don't know what I'd be doing if it wasn't this, to be honest. So
Yeah, I guess it's the same for most of the strength coaches out there. Like, same thing for me. I wanted to be a professional baseball player. I wanted to play for the Yankees, but that didn't happen. And also had multiple injuries throughout my career, so I was always trying to find ways to recover from injuries and also to improve my performance. And that's how I fell in love with strength and conditioning.
absolutely. And I tell you, I say this to my guys all the time, like, yo, if I had the choice to be a professional athlete, I would definitely be a baseball player, because they get paid so much. Like, granted, the seasons are very long and stuff like that. Like, I don't know about that, but yeah, man, definitely either a baseball player or golf. I think those are the two best. I mean, you get paid a lot in those sports. So
Plus, you can play till you are 40,
that's
45
what
years
I'm
old.
saying. Yeah, you don't have to worry about losing your athleticism or nothing like that. So
No, that's true. That's true. Anthony, as you said, you started working with in private sector. Can you please tell us which are the main differences between private sector and team environment?
yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest difference within the private sector is, of course, the intimacy, the one-on-one that you get, the interaction that you get with your clients. I think that is great because, again, like, they you find out a lot more about them than you would have, like, in a group setting, right? Because, again, they're very open, their guards are down, and you spend a lot of time with them. And I felt like a lot of times within the private sector, like, yes, I was a strength coach, but I was also a form of their therapist, like hearing the stressors that they have on the daily and stuff like that. So definitely the intimacy part for sure, and the one-on-one that you get with them. And then, of course, the team setting is the biggest thing. The difference is just the atmosphere, right? You can't replicate that at all. It's just contagious. I'm sure you've seen it. Like, you have guys within the group that they just get everybody motivated and going. So um, my biggest thing is trying to take from the private sector within the team setting is trying to make sure that each session that we have and everything, each player felt like they can take something away, like they had my one-on-one attention, right? Whether it's commending them on good form, or whether it's giving them tidbits about stuff, or sending them something individually, you know what I mean, to make it feel like, I have their best interests at heart. You know what I mean? I think that's extremely important, and things that I took away from the private sector for sure.
Got it. You just finished your first season as the strength as a strength coach of a G League team. What was the biggest challenge that you faced throughout the season?
I'd say the biggest challenge that I faced during the season was definitely the travel, part, not from the traveling itself, but going to different cities and not essentially knowing what we'll have access to. Because with the G League, we're still trying to sort out, like, what is allotted to opposing strength coaches from an equipment side. So if you're on a long road trip, that's a long period of time where you're just kind of in the dark as far as what you have access to, adaptation wise, keeping guys, locked in. And again, like, my first year, I essentially don't know exactly the layouts of a lot of gyms, like what I do have access to, what the hotel situation was like. So that was just the only thing. Like, granted, you can research and see and ask around, but you don't know until you're actually there. So a lot of it is just improv, like on the fly. Like, okay, you get there a few hours before, you just kind of take a look at, the layout, what you have access to, ask the opposing strength coach, and you just lock in. So I think that's the biggest challenge that a lot of strength coaches face when their first year, not knowing the environment that they're going into and how they can get the best out of their athletes for the time period that they're there.
But that definitely improves your creativity.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So I think, also too, like when I was in the private sector and, the world was on lockdown for about a year, I was training a lot of clients virtually and a lot of them didn't have a gym setup. All they had was a couple of, Tide Pods and some backpacks and some books and stuff. So we'd have to get really creative on how to create adaptation and everything like that. So I think all of that helped, and having all I need is some open space, and I'll make it work. I have my own little case and stuff that I actually brought from back home with me on the road. So all I need is some space, and I'll make it happen. So
And what's the biggest takeaway from this season?
the biggest takeaway is just to be adaptable, right? Be adaptable and to know that there is no perfect scenario, right? Myself personally, I'm a big planner. Like, I love to plan everything. I'm planning out the whole season as you should, and what things are going to look like on the road. But there's just so many different things that happen. Injuries, guys get called up, guys get assigned down. Um, Whatever may happen, like there's just always certain things that happen that just always alter a lot of factors, the hour, the time allotted. So just kind of being adaptable and understanding that there's no perfect world, but you also need to have a series of like check downs and regressions and progressions, just so you can adjust accordingly. So yeah, adaptable for sure.
Yeah, it would be great to have the ability to have a top-down approach for the entire season, but most of the time you need to have a bottom-up approach when you have where you have to adapt on the fly and react to what's going on and what is happening every single week, right?
Absolutely, 100%. That's big time. That's the only way you're successful within it. You just got to be adaptable and adjust and move on the fly. That's it.
So working in the G League, you get to work with so many young players and so many young future stars. How do you make sure to hold them accountable? And can you give us some tips on how to keep them motivated throughout the season?
Yeah, 100%. So the biggest thing is how the G League structure is. Each team gets two-way players, which essentially they split their time with the G League and, of course, the NBA team. So when assigned two-way players, they're monitored by front office to see how they are. So like you already have that component going as far as like, hey, you're trying to work to get a contract. These are the things that we need to continually know, right? So we set key performance indicators throughout the course of the season. And that's something that we check up monthly, right? So whether it's local joint output within their hamstrings or whatever the case may be, force plate readings and stuff like that, just submitting those, but also kind of sitting with the player and letting them know, like, hey, these are where your, where your shortcomings are on the court, your strength wise. This is how we're going to improve. This is how you get to the next level. So just kind of like laying it out for them. I think where strength coaches might go wrong is they just do tests and administer things and not really telling the athletes why it is that you're doing it. So I think my biggest thing in keeping guys accountable is letting them know, like, hey, this is why we're doing it. This is why it's important, and this is how it's going to get you to the next level. Because that's all they care about. Like, what about this is going to get me to the next level? If it's going to help me, if it's going to track my progress, if it's going to see when I'm fatigued or whatever the case may be, I'll do it. But if it's not, I'm not doing it. Right. So that's the biggest thing. And just incentivizing it, like making things competitive, I think it's extremely important. And that goes back to like the type of culture you create, right? You want to create a culture that everybody challenges each other and, gets a reward, because winning gets rewarded. So whatever can contribute to winning will contribute to guys getting paid, contribute to guys leveling up and going to wherever it is that they need to go. So that's kind of how I keep guys locked in on that.
Nice. Can you give us an example of on how to keep everything competitive in the wagering, for example?
Uh, okay. One thing that I like to use, and I know we'll touch upon this, is velocity-based training, right? So it's a great objective tool, like to give real-time feedback, right? So I'll preset the velocity for. Well, let me take a step back. For those of you who don't know what velocity-based training is essentially measuring bar speed, and you know, you're essentially trying to target the force velocity curve and different aspects of it, create different adaptations. So one way that I like to create, kind of that competitive atmosphere is, I'll preset the velocities for the day depending on what the adaptation is, and I'll get the lift in early in the morning. All right, I'll get the lift in, and then I'll put all my numbers. Like I'm an open book, so I'll put all my numbers there. Like, hey, the going rate for hypertrophy today, I got 225 or 0.75 meters per second. Like, what you doing? All right, so just little things like that, and of course, like the system in itself, like you can see, you have a tablet set up, and it kind of gives readings instantly. So like, if they, of course, they don't get up to that point, yeah, I'm on their ear about it, and then, I start, barking, and then that person starts talking to the other. Oh, this is what I got. And then before you know it, everybody's, you're getting max intent, you're getting that competitive nature, you're getting, like everybody's having fun. So we're all competitive at the end of the day. So that's just a little tidbit I like to do just to kind of, spice things up a little bit. Just talk my crap. That's it.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I use the same approach. Like I go through the players' workout early in the morning, and I
Have
have a whiteboard like this behind me in a
to.
weight room where I write all my numbers, and I try
Mhm.
to compete against the players.
Have to. Yeah, you gotta let them know we in here working.
Yeah, that's huge. That's huge. Going back to VBT, uh, how do you use it during the season, and when do you use it?
Yeah, I try to use it definitely in the off season and throughout the season as well, because again, like I said, it gives you measurements, right? It's great for like optimizing performance, managing fatigue. It's also good at, profiling athletes in the beginning of the season to see where they're deficient at, and also, qualifying daily readiness as well. So I use it fairly frequently um, throughout the course of the season for sure, especially like when we get into peaking phase, and I want to make sure that, if I'm reducing their volume, their release intent is the highest that it can be, right? So I use the perch system. It's a Boston based company. The engineers are from MIT, and how it works is, again, I set everybody's profiles. I preset the velocity zones along the first velocity curve, and it gives me a reading. So if the bar speed is within the green, that means that we're the weight is adequate for the day. If it's in the yellow, that means that it's a little bit lighter, that we can increase the next set. And if it's in the red, that means that it's too heavy. So that's a good way for me to kind of check in with guys to see where they're at. But sometimes it may not even be the strength part. It's just like they might be stressed. They might have had a bad month of playing, and they just might not be engaged. So that's how I kind of like to implement it throughout the period, throughout the course of the season, to see where they're at and check in with them.
Are there other tools that you use to monitor readiness?
Yeah, I just RPE, right? Just asking about a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like the hardest, like how was today, right? Just kind of checking in, and I think that's also why it's extremely important to have like a great relationship with the players. Resorting back to that aspect of like that intimacy that you have one on one. Like you always check in with players, like, hey, how you doing today? Before you start getting into like their injuries, or like, hey, you had a bad game last night. Like, how are you feeling today? You tired? Like, what you end up getting into last night? Like, you ready to lock in, and just kind of bringing them over to the board. Like, yo, this is what we got planned for today. And then they'll get to talking and stuff, and then you can kind of see that is my biggest thing. VBT, utilizing again like the force plates as well to kind of assess kind of where they're at on that. And yeah, just being an open book and just open door policy, just kind of being real with the players, seeing where they're at.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Can you please break down for us the process you go through when you meet a new athlete for the first time?
Yeah, no doubt. So I try to have like a sit down with each athlete. So how it came to be last year, like again, this is my first year. So when I came into training camp, we had guys on the training camp roster that were going to be assigned to the G League, right? So during that time period, it was about what, 5 guys here that I knew that were going to be with me throughout the course of the season. So I just try to sit down with guys and just kind of have a conversation. Like, what is it that you want for yourself? All right. What is it that you want to accomplish this season? And also ask them, like, what do you think you need to improve on? And I like to do a lot of research, whether it's film or whatever. So by the time I've already had to sit down with them, I kind of know their playing style, I know their strengths, I know their weaknesses, and then I give them my honest opinion as far as like this is where I think that you can improve on, and of course do like a series of tests to establish baselines and how they compare against other guards in the league, other forwards, or their own peers or teammates. And then that's kind of how we have that collaborative process. Like, hey, this is what I think. These are the areas I think you can improve on. This is where I want to get you at, and let's lock in. Let's do that. So that's kind of been my approach. And again, I've got that from the private sector because I think it's very important to have that sit down with the guys if you can. Right? I know it's difficult sometimes. There's so many players and there's only one of you. But try again, like scheduling out that time to have a sit down and give everybody that one-on-one attention so they feel like you have their best interests at heart. I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Especially if you work in basketball, it's something that is definitely doable because we get the chance to work with a limited amount of players, like 14, 15 maybe. While if you work in baseball or professional football, you have probably 40, 50, 60 athletes. So it's definitely something that we need to do, and it definitely can go a long way with the buy-in of your athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you? What are some things that you like to do with your guys?
Same as you, same as you. I try to do my research. I try to reach out to some of their previous strength coaches to have some information about them. I try to watch some highlights. I like to watch some games. And then, as you said, I try to sit down with them and have an interview. And I also try to reach out to them before they arrive to the city, like before they arrive to training camp. I try to call them on FaceTime or on Zoom or have a Zoom call with them in order to look them in the eyes and have a first conversation with them, just to
Yeah,
check in.
100%. I think it's extremely valuable, and it shows that you care. That's the biggest thing. They don't care
Yeah,
how much you know. They just they want to know how much you care. And you show
yeah,
that.
absolutely, absolutely. And for example, if we sign a new player during summertime, and I reach out to him, I also want to know if he needs something from me. If I can be of any help, because maybe this guy is working out, but he's working out without a strength coach. So even though I don't know him, I can still provide him with like a general workout plan, but it's better than going
Nothing.
to the gym by himself, by
Hey,
himself.
100%. That makes sense. That's good stuff.
All right, man. Let's switch gears. I want to talk briefly about your mentors. So, uh, which are the coaches that taught you the most? And in your career, what's the moment that you can define as the turning point of your career?
Yeah. So let's start off with the mentors. I think it all started again with Mike Boyle, right? Being able to learn from him, being an intern there, like having access to, like with all interns, we had access to like his exercise library, his previous lectures, his guest speakers, and everything like that. And one thing that I did is, I wanted to get that one-on-one time with him. So I would always, before all the interns, I would go early because I know he had his pro groups in the morning. So I would just watch his lectures, his like videos the night before. I'd be there the morning of, and I would just be pestering him with questions and all this other stuff, just to just to get that one-on-one time with him and learn a lot. And I think from him, I just learned the structure, like the skeleton structure of how to successfully map out, your workout for the day, for the month, for the year. And also too, it's like if you haven't been into Mike Boyle's facility, he has two really nice facilities, but he also has like 8 strength coaches in there that are training about like 10 to 15 athletes. And like they all like, it's like clockwork. It's like a factory in there, being able to get adaptation and, kind of joint by joint approach and progressions, regressions, and all that stuff. So learning that from him was a great experience. And then two of his offsprings from the internship and working standpoint was, Vinny Coludi. He was Vinny Coludi and Brian Dew. So Vinny Coludi is now the head strength coach with SMU. Shout out to him. Congratulations. That's big time. And of course, Brian Dew, he was a strength coach with the Celtics for about 10 plus years. But from them, I learned the importance of building that relationship with the players, right? Bringing that culture aspect and embracing them and just kind of being passionate about it. Because they opened up their doors to me and taught me about programming and everything like that. So from there, then I branched out, did my own thing for a while, but I missed that, mentorship aspect of being part of a team, like part of, like a collaborative process, like having peers. So then I joined Dr. Ramsey Nijam's like APC course. And then from there, I gained a mentor in him and just kind of like my peers and learning a lot from him, like research-based methods to maximize performance and, getting to know him. And, it's just being able to bridge the gap and being yourself and dominating your role and being where you're at, but also like applying research into things because that's where the game is going essentially. Right. So that's another big mentor of mine. And of course, like now here, like I have a great relationship with Trent and Jordan and Lou with the Pistons side. So just learning from them and, getting feedback from them on the daily it's been extremely great for myself personally. So yeah, those are my mentors. And of course, there's a lot of other people that I haven't met personally, but like, I tap in with, Coach Allen Bishop or PJ Performance or Coach Mike G and stuff like that. I love their work. Corey Schlesinger, I love his work as well. So yeah, those are all mentors or guys that have definitely, helped me tailor my philosophies and how I go about things.
Yeah, some great names. And what about the turning point of your career?
I think the turning point, honestly, was getting this job. To be honest, the turning point of my career, because again, I was in the private sector and it was great. Like, there's infinite amount of opportunities that you could do within the private sector and working with athletes and stuff like that. But I've always wanted to work within the team setting. So I think getting that opportunity and also hitting the ground running, that just kind of reassured me that what I was doing back home is essentially, I was right on the right path. All the research that I was doing, all the reps that I was getting in with athletes and stuff like that, it was right on time. So that's definitely the turning point. I love my year here so far, and I'm excited to kind of see what stems from this. Because it's infinite amount of opportunities. Of course, across the NBA teams or even here, right? So the first year is only going to get better. So being in this space, being with this organization has definitely been a turning point, learning a lot, having access to resources. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited for the future to see kind of what stems from here for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Anthony, I want to go back to strength and conditioning. I forgot to ask you something that I'm really interested to. And I would like to know which are your pre-game routines, pre-game and pre-practice routines.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the pregame routine, how it works within the G League, and I'm pretty sure like throughout the NBA, you're essentially players are allotted 30 minutes, 15 towards like pre-activation, mobility, and then 15 towards like on-court shooting and stuff like that. So it's all dependent on, of course, the player. There's some players that, at least in the NBA, they have their own routine, and you're just kind of there to assist and help them the best way you can. But when it comes to pre-activation that I lead and I guide, I have like a semblance of order, like because you only have 15 minutes. So essentially you need to be efficient within those 15 minutes. So I like to do, jump by joint approach, like full body mobility flows and routines, band activation, proprioceptive work, because I'm big on the term of like microdosing. Because again, it's only 15 minutes. And this is why I try to stress to the guys, because they always view, strength and conditioning or just anything aside from basketball as taking time away from them. Some guys rather just sit and foam roll and do all this other stuff. But if you break it down, so I'm like, listen, if we have 55 to 65 games and we designate 15 minutes to proprioceptive work, band work, as far as like doing flow mobility, tendon work, foot health, all these different things like sling, core activation. And you pile those up throughout 15 minutes throughout the 65 games, like you're putting a lot of work in and a lot of adaptation. That's time where you can get a lot of adaptation during that time. So I really try to focus on, of course, like their playing style. The things. There's some guys that are slower as far as like their pre-activation, so like ground-based movements and flows, and then there's guys that just want to get right to it. And then aside from that, there's knowing the rotations is extremely important too. Like when the guys get assigned, certain players aren't going to play, so that pre-activation time turns into an actual workout time, right? Utilizing those 15 minutes for them to either get some form of conditioning, some form of like flow mobility, some um, sling work, um, explosive development, anything that it is that they need is essentially I use that time for that. So
Yeah,
um,
I like
sling
it.
work, yeah.
And is this something that you change on a daily basis or on a weekly basis, or it's something that you try to keep constant for like 3, 4 weeks and then change it?
Yeah, I try to keep it because players are all about, they're very superstitious. They're all about routine. So granted, yes, there's definitely times where I add variations for sure, but I try to keep at least their pregame routine fairly familiar because again, like they're there, they can tune music in or whatever. You want them to always have, the meat and potatoes of what they can go back, back to, right? Foot health, proprioceptive work, doing flow mobility, different things to engage their slings, plyometric work, right? So if you switch it up on them, they're like, I don't even know what I'm doing today. You know what I mean? So that's why, like, you kind of periodize it a little bit. Like, okay, yeah, we'll do this for 3 or 4 weeks, and then we'll progress it. Or how does this work? Do you like this? Do you not like this? Let's remove this. Let's add this, right? So I think it's a lot of plugging and playing, like seeing what works for them, but also at the same time, like trying to guide them as best as you can as far as what they need to be doing. So I think it's extremely valuable. And as far as pre-practice, it's I try to vary it. Like I'm big on doing lunge matrices, lunge matrices and stuff like that with the ball in their hand because I think that that's a lot more valuable than just kind of them just doing it without. Because again, you're kind of putting sugar in the medicine a little bit. Like, oh, I got a ball in my hand, like I'll do whatever with it. But essentially, you're doing a lot of lunge matrices, a lot of held positions, a lot of tendon loading, hip hinging, different things like that. So that's kind of how I create adaptation, and that's how I get a lot of work throughout the season. Pre-game practice, try to put the ball in their hand as much as I can, and being creative with that.
Yeah, that's actually a great tip.
Mhm.
Using the ball, it's great. It's
I
great.
have to, I have to. The sugar in the medicine, man. That's all it
Yeah,
is.
absolutely.
They're willing to do anything as long as they get the ball in their hand. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Anthony, it was a great episode, but usually we finish off with 3 rapid fire questions.
Okay,
All
let's do
right.
it.
So,
Yes, sir.
first one, your favorite exercise in the weight room for yourself?
Favorite exercise in the weight room? I say trap bar deadlift.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah, 100%.
It was my main lift today, so I like
Okay, there you go. Yeah, I'm about to kick my own butt in about an hour or so and go get me some trap bar deadlift. So yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites. And again, like with the trap bar deadlift, there's so many variations that you can do with it. Of course, like the jump shrug, do single leg with the open bar with the trap bar deadlift as well. So yeah, it's big time. I love the trap bar.
it. Second one, your favorite book on strength and conditioning?
Uh, the Black Book of Training Secrets by Christian Thibodeau. That is that's definitely one of my favorites to this day for sure. Just because again, you can there's just so much that he has provided to the game as far as like strength conditioning wise and the whole bodybuilding for athletes. Again, functional hypertrophy, different strength strength and conditioning protocols and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things that I use, especially I like to microdose, because you only have about 20, 25 minutes with athletes usually during the season, like when it comes to strength training. So utilizing properties like that is something that I definitely like and I subscribe to. So definitely Black Book of Training Secrets.
Okay, I didn't know this book. I'm going to check it out for sure.
Send it to you, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'll send you the link for sure.
All right, and the last one, an athlete that you would like to work with, not basketball related.
An athlete I like to work with, not basketball related. Let me see. That's a good question. I would like to work with Serena Williams. I think that would be dope. I mean, she's just a monster, right? I mean, I feel like just what she has done for the game of tennis, and to have done it for as long as she has, and to continually to progress and almost be in her prime still, is extremely dope. And again, like I would just love to train her into because lateral movements, like I'm big on speed and agility and strength and power and everything like that. So I'd love to be able to kind of tap in with her, and to also just, I'm big on too, like learning from athletes as well, like especially those that have had success for that long in their career, like kind of what makes you tick, and how have you been able to keep yourself motivated, sustain that throughout the course of your career. So yeah, I would love to train Serena Williams. That'd be dope.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's great. My daughter is 1 year old, and every day I tell her, you're gonna be the next Serena Williams.
Hell yeah!
Every single day I tell her.
Did you watch the movie King Richard?
Not yet, not yet, but I'm planning to watch it soon for sure.
Yeah. Will Smith, he won an Oscar.
Yeah, I know that. I know.
Didn't know how to act after that. So, wow.
All right, Anthony. It was a great episode. I really enjoyed it. If some of our listeners would like to reach out to you, where can they find you?
So my Instagram is ice_t_junior. And then of course where I'm active as far as in the off season and posting stuff is Barry.performance on Instagram as well. But this was fun, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time out for having me on. Like I said, I'm a big fan. I love following what you do on the daily, and just keep it up, man. We keep on pushing this profession forward and trying to get guys right, and push this thing to the next level. So I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for taking the time and spending some time with us today.
Absolutely. Much love, brother. I appreciate you.
And it's a wrap on episode 39 of Sport Vitamins. Don't forget that you can find Sport Vitamins on YouTube, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. Until next time, guys, I'm out.